welcome to today's Gramersi Masterclass event. This event is in association with Making Websites Better, MWB, and the topic of this event is called How to Turbocharge Your E-Commerce Efforts. I would say this is one of the most important events we've done today, and I'm going to explain why. So the reason why it's really important is because, as you all know, in recent years, I'll say specifically within the last 10 years, the internet has completely game changed the whole retail space in such a profound way. If we just rewind by a few years and we go back by 20, 30 years to how it used to operate, if you were starting a new brand in, let's say, the 90s, for example, your goal at that time would have been to get stocked in one of the major retail outlets, whether that was Debenhams, whether it was John Lewis, whoever it was, that would have been your goal. And the reason why is because it offered easy route to sales, easy route to high volume sales, and that was a goal for a lot of companies. Whereas what we're seeing now is we're seeing that whole model change. And the reason why is because with the internet, we've now got companies like Shopify, Klarna, WooCommerce, Magento, whichever system you want to use, Stripe. I mean, there's obviously endless names out there that are really hot right now that have given people the opportunity to DIY their brand. They don't need retailers anymore. It's a luxury. It's a nice thing if you can get it, but it's not essential. And actually, one of the downsides of getting stocked in retails, as we all know, what's the first thing that gets crushed? Your margins. The online mechanisms enables you to keep your profit margins as best as possible, overall creating a more profitable company. I would say that COVID has had a massive impact on this. Paul Warren will be going into more detail about it shortly, but I'm just going to give you a couple of quick stats. The first stat is that we did an article recently that had some research behind it that showed that 75% of people during the COVID pandemic have bought something online from a company that they previously had either never bought from them online before or had bought in physical. Another stat is that more companies than ever before have switched to online sales that had never sold online before. So to give it a good example, if you've got a favorite restaurant, that restaurant would have closed down during COVID, or at least for public attendance anyway. A lot of these restaurants have switched to online models, which meant they could keep delivery services going. So whereas someone who regularly attends a specific restaurant, they are now for the first time they to buy that online. So to kind of back this stat up, more companies than ever before are selling online, and that's been significant in the last year. Another thing to bear in mind is the foreclosure of the high street. Now, over the years, we've seen the demise of the high street, unfortunately. Some of our favourite household names, WH Smith, BHS, you can kind of go on and on about it, really. But I'd say the most relevant one recently has been Debenhams, who closed their entire high street operation, moved to an online-only model, and were obviously bought out by Boohoo, I believe. So what this also means is that once upon a time, there was more retailers available, or high street retailers available to get your item stocked. That's starting to shrink. So now brands are not only choosing to rebel against retail, but they're actually almost not having a choice anymore because that market is shrinking and the online market is expanding along with that. You all know me, I'm George Taylor. I actually kept this in for anyone that didn't know who I was, but you all know who I am, so I'll skip the slide. Gramersi, just to remind you, we're a digital publisher. We specialize solely in consumer and retail startup news, video content, and events. As always, I always cover some quick highlights. So I'm going to do the same thing again today. For April's highlights, I'd say we've been getting in on the Dragon's Den buzz. Obviously, Dragon's Den's back on, one of my favorite shows. Brilliant show, love it. We've been picking out 2 to 3 brands from each episode, covering them. And as a result, Deborah Meaden's picked up on us. She's been tweeting some of our posts out. We've been talking via DM on Twitter recently, so that's really exciting. I'm personally a huge Deborah Meaden fan, so it's been an absolute honour to be able to speak to her and to have her on our radar. Fantastic. Was buzzing for days on that one. Because of her retweeting stuff, we've jumped up by 39% this month on traffic, which is actually double what our normally monthly growth is. So we've by far had our biggest month last month. Also, we worked with our first royal, Lady Amelia Windsor. I'm not sure if you guys know her. She's not really in the limelight as much as some of the others, but she recently did a handbag partnership, a sustainable handbag collection that she launched, limited edition, in association with Beam London. Really great sustainable fashion brand. We in a few days we'll be announcing our Vistaprint event. So we're doing a branding workshop with Vistaprint. That's our biggest media partnership yet. So that's a massive win for us. And we're in talks about doing a more substantial partnership then moving forward. And last but not least, we have decided to launch a new website. We was actually planning on doing it next year, but we're doing it now. So in the next few weeks, our new site will be going live. Thanks to our CTO Ashley, who's in here somewhere. I don't know where he is. He's gone on the missing list, but he's in the chat somewhere. So yeah, if you haven't followed us already, we'd really appreciate it. I mean, as always, big push on YouTube and Facebook. Please do subscribe to us. I mean, we really want to grow our YouTube channel. We've got a target, 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Not going to happen if people don't support us in that regard. Right. Last but not least, I won't yabber on anymore. I think you've heard enough of my voice for one day. I'm going to move you on to what you're all here for. That's Paul Warren. So just a little bit of backstory. I first met Paul in late 2016 at a Lord Sugar event. I think it was a British Museum. I can't remember. I think it was there. We kind of hit it off straight away. We just got on. From the moment we started talking, we got on, and we've kept in touch ever since over the years. I've always been really impressed with Paul's entrepreneurial flair. He operated within the print sector for about 15, 20 years. He's an expert in all things marketing and branding, really knows his stuff. In recent years, he's launched a company called Making Websites Better, which are rapidly growing. And they've worked with some awesome companies and people. So just to pluck a few names out there for you: Lord Sugar, Amscreen, Andrew Block. They're currently in talks with the Netflix documentary Seaspiracy. And there's a lot more, which I will let Paul go into himself. He's a marketing expert. He knows all things e-commerce. So without further ado, I'm going to switch this over to Paul now. So please give me a couple of minutes to sort that out for you.
So yeah, this is an e-commerce webinar. It's just a conversation really about some of our personal opinions, things we've observed with our customers, and what we just observe and research in the marketplace. Obviously, very, very pleased to be doing this with Gramersi. George is a great guy, and we want to support everything that he's doing. So, it's very, very good to be doing this with you guys. So I'm Paul. I'm the founder of the company. Started the company in early 2019. We've grown the business now. There'll be about 14 of us by this summer. So, about 40% of our trading history has been in the middle of a pandemic, which has always been a challenge. But there's a lot of people trying to get online and do the right thing. So our brand name is Making Websites Better, but we're made up of two halves. So we have the agency half of the business where we build high-end bespoke e-commerce businesses. We always design with the user in mind. So we're always thinking about our customer's customer, what their needs are on the website, and we're very goal driven on that side of the business as well. On the digital side of the business, Mark's on the call as well today. He heads up our digital area where we offer digital marketing solutions to essentially get the right customers to our customers' websites. Long story short. And the reason George invited me to have a talk today is obviously e-commerce is huge at the moment. It's had massive expansion, massive growth, and massive change. And I was chatting to George the other month about the fact that I'm currently writing a book called Freedom from Choice, which is, primarily around retail and e-commerce. This is about the fact that, why do websites not do a better job of helping consumers and customers make decisions and purchase online? It's too laborious. You look at holidays, you've got things where you're having to scroll through and spend hours trolling and searching yourself and putting in information yourself about what you want to do. Why don't holiday websites ask you what you like doing, ask you what sort of things you want to do, who's going on it, and when you want to go, and then just give you answers? And then in terms of, there's other sectors like food, what do you like eating? Who's eating it? What frequency do you want to eat it? And then give you answers about that. So why can't websites do a better job essentially of getting information from us, the consumer, and putting that online? And filtering down all that noise. You think about advertising today, there's so much noise out there. If you go to somewhere like Times Square, you're covered, or Piccadilly Circus, you're covered with adverts. Same as your social media, same as your YouTube, same as everything you go on, you're covered with adverts. And why are websites, our brains are too busy. We're so full of decisions. We've got decision fatigue as consumers. So websites, like we believe, should do a better job of helping someone say, right, this is the right wine for you, this is the right food for you, this is the right holiday for you. Otherwise, consumers are just not going to make purchases. And if you don't give someone a reason to choose you, to take the freedom away, take the choice away, people will just judge you on price. And if you're in business, you don't want customers to only judge you on price. It's not what we're in business for, is to be the cheapest. You're in business to add value, make money. So yeah, the ebook's coming out soon. So hopefully George will get that on social media as well, when that's something people can download and access. tell you a bit about ourselves. We build websites. So we build websites for business to business companies, as well as sort of e-commerce and other sort of markets. We've been really fortunate to work with people like Made and Paradise Wildlife Park and Cougar's Cookies and Go in Store and lots of great businesses, and we're really proud of some of the work we've done. We've only been going sort of 2 or so years, so we've picked up a really great client base in that short space of time. Most recently, we've just launched the new Amscreen website for Lord Sugar. We've just signed Seaspiracy to work with them on a website which is going to help educate young people around the topics that are in the documentary. It's the number one trending film in the UK. It's still trending #1 around the world. And we're working with these guys. So we built lots of other e-commerce sites for some of the ones I'll bring up on screen here, but you can check out loads more on our website where it's all around the user. It's all around the end target audience. And let's look at the e-commerce market. So some of the major stats that hit me was in the first quarter of 2020, and this was leading into COVID, people saw 10 years of growth in expected market penetration. So that's not a steady curve. That's a huge incline. And I haven't got data on since because it's so raw, but you can imagine the trend has just continued, and it's certainly not going to calm down anytime soon. And then the other amazing stat is I think it was only 17% of retail spend globally was online before COVID. Now it's 30%. I mean, that's again more than doubled the consumer sort of behavior. I can't see that going back anytime soon. So 2020 was a defining year for e-commerce, isn't it? There's no question about it. It's created an everlasting change in consumer behavior. Consumers are going to change the way that they think and the way they buy forever. We've changed our lives, we've changed our working habits, our shopping patterns, and that's not going to bounce back. It's going to just stay the way it is forever. And there's been a 169% increase in new or infrequent e-commerce customers. So that's people that have either very rarely or have never bought online before. There's a massive increase in those types of people. It's been like 30 years of evolution in digitization crammed into 1 year. And technology's had to take the brunt of that. Consumers have led it, but technology's had to take the brunt of that. And over half of consumers that have been within this category of buying more online say that they're not going to go back to the old ways of doing it. They're not going to go down to a town centre and spend all day shopping anymore. They're going to buy things around their lives, and they're going to buy them delivered to their homes. And then one of the major financial trends I saw was mobile payments is expected to be $5.5 trillion by 2026. It's currently around about 1.4 trillion. And what this means is things like Apple Pay and Amazon Pay and the things that we're subscribed to already that we can sort of tap with our phones in stores now. The online quick checkout type thing is obviously not going away anytime soon. And then the other fascination was US. So the general retail shrank by 2.3% in the first sort of half of 2020, but e-commerce grew by 26.7%. So in a shrinking market, e-commerce had a massive increase, which is fascinating. And I personally think people are less likely to overspend. You're not browsing around the shops and going, oh, I'll grab that because it's on offer at the end of the aisle, or I'll grab that because it looks like it's 3 for 2 or something like that. So, there's less store browsing. People are fed up of using websites. So there's hopefully more accurate spending and more. But the thing we've seen, I think, with some of our retail clients, especially in sort of the clothing sort of market, is people are buying 5 garments and returning 4. Whereas if you go to a shop, you tend to try on some clothes and go, that's fine. I'll buy that one thing and get on with your day. So that's not so good for retailers, in that you might have to deal with a lot of two-way distribution of goods, which is a real shame. Customer acquisition cost has gone through the roof. I think, if we've got Q&A at the end, happy to talk about that. Mark will be happy to answer questions as well. But it's been dreadful, quite frankly, what some of the costs of getting customers to actually buy these days, because it's such a competitive landscape. So pay-per-click costs have gone through the roof. The success rates of paid social costs, so the conversion rates are going through the roof, because it's a more competitive market. And that will shrink again. But at the moment, it's very, very costly to acquire a customer online. And I think, George, you touched on this earlier as well in your introduction, but 3/4 of consumers have tried online for the first time, which is just fascinating. And also that means that there's very little loyalty, because people are trying new providers. You're not going to the high street and saying, I'll go to that shop because I always buy my things there. You're just Googling or being influenced by something on social media and then buying something because you want it. So loyalty's certainly gone out. And then approximately 150 million new consumers entered the e-commerce landscape, which is is a great big market out there globally for people to tap into. I think the number's low, to be honest, I'd imagine it's probably more. So yeah, my visualizing the market, this is my personal opinion, just looking at some data that we've been researching. But you look at where we are, you've got the big Amazon types, you've got like the directories of other people's products, you've got the huge retailers, which are primarily on the high street, but now online as well. The purple dots represent more the kind of ASOSs and the guys that have been established e-commerce guys, and then you've got the new to the market orange guys here. And what's going to happen is Amazon are getting bigger and bigger through COVID, at that type anyway, that sort of directory type. The retail giants are getting smaller because they're trying to pivot onto online. The middle of the market, where the current boys are there, the aces are staying and booming, but they're still the same sort of number. But there's a flood of people, independent people just starting e-commerce businesses that are entering the market. And the long-term sort of objective of that, the outcome of that will be, is probably there'll be far less retail people. They'll be snapped up by the online guys. The online guys will spread, but there'll be a few of these independents that will really be successful. Everyone started somewhere, right? We've all started a business, and it's had a foundation, and it takes off. So some of these independents that have started through COVID in a few years' time will be the next ASOSs. They'll be the next sort of Pretty Little Things. They'll be the next Gymsharks, etc. So there's great opportunity out there if people get the models right. And the trouble is the more established a business is, the more rooted in the sand they are. So they can't pivot. I always say this, like, if you're buried up to your waist in sand on the beach and someone says, can you come over here? You can't, because you've got to unbury yourself before you change direction. And that's the trouble with these big retailers, is that they might have had an online presence just to sort of be a byproduct of their activity, but it wasn't their primary focus. So now for them to sort of, like Debenhams, like unbury themselves, it's very difficult to sort of change direction, which means that all the other e-commerce players have got an opportunity to change and react and be more agile. So there's never been a better time to start an e-commerce business. However, everyone has to be mindful that it's extremely competitive and it's very hard to gain market share. So I've got 10 tips to wrap up. And the first one is, because I'm researching and writing a lot about this at the moment, is freedom from choice. Try to, with the user experience of a website, take away the choice from the customer and give them tools and user experience facilities on the website to help them make a decision, because the quicker they make a decision, the quicker they'll purchase, and the more sticky the website will be. Number two would be trying to create an authentic brand story. All the successful exploding brands in the recent times have all had a great story, a great sort of authentic positioning. And Simon Sinek says it best in this quote here, is people don't just buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Genuinely, this in today's lives, we buy into the meaning behind brands that we buy into. Three would be trying to look at, say, a lot of people we talk to started a business by selling on Amazon and eBay and things like that. No problem with that at all. But you've got to always look at it that around about a third, 25% to a third of the revenue that the customer's paying is going to these guys, right? So if you can try and look at your marketing spend directly by having a website and look at your digital marketing and say, could I take all of that away, and could I invest that third in acquiring customers, and even, for example, breaking even on the first order, but you keep the customer and get the second, third, fourth order? We love to encourage our clients to look at trying to move away from these directories if it's financially viable to do so. Give people clear reasons to choose you. You don't need, this is pretty obvious stuff, but too many e-commerce websites just trying to be price sensitive. Like, yeah, we're cheap. We're going to be cheaper than the guy down the road or the guy you've just Googled. It's not. You give other people reasons to choose you. People like Amazon. Why have Amazon grown? Next day delivery. It's one massive selling, biggest marketplace. Next day delivery. Have a unique selling point that your consumers really buy into. 5 would be looking at great user experience, which leads into the freedom from choice methodology, and great customer experience. Because if your customer can't contact you, speak to you online, check you out on social media, see your reviews, have a feeling that you're the right brand for you. We've spoken about the fact that 75% of new people to the e-commerce market have gone to a new provider, so they're not looking at going to an established brand. So you need to reassure the customers. Omni-channel marketing mix. You can't just do one thing. You can't just do social media and hope it works. You've got to do video, you've got to do podcasts, you've got to do SEO, you've got to try stuff, you've got to experiment. And unfortunately, it does cost money to market your business these days, because it's so competitive. And building a product based upon your customers, they're the most important part of all of this. Looking at what problem you're solving. Too many people go into business and sort of set up a company saying, I wanted to do this, I wanted to sell that. Well, you've got to look at what the market appetite is, the competitive nature of that market, and whether you can stand out and compete. 8 would be consider social e-commerce. The fact that Mark Zuckerberg is saying that it's top of Facebook and Instagram's priorities is to absolutely dominate and own social selling. That's a behemoth of an organization that believes in it entirely. So social selling is definitely going to be part of our future and part of our lives. Tip 9 is look at the mix of revenue model. We work with a few clients that have subscription models, gifting models, one-time purchase models, trial models. And I think, it's a bit like normal business. You've got to have 2 or 3 sort of, strands of how people might order from you. And we're not adverse to subscriptions, right? Because 20 years ago, all of us might have had a pay-as-you-go phone or something, whereas pretty much everyone in the world now has got a subscription mobile phone. We've got subscription for everything we use. So it's becoming more commonplace for people to have subscriptions for pretty much everything they need in their home and in their work life. And the final thing is, because it's so competitive, you have to have a niche. Like you can't go out and just sell trainers. You're not going to compete. You've got to look at personalizing your offering to a niche. And actually what we're seeing as well is hyper local. People ironically are building e-commerce models for a region even, to sort of serve a distribution network in a local area. So that's the top 10 tips anyway, and that's sort of me, my waffle over. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Paul. Very informative. Really appreciate it. What we'll do now is if everyone wants to click their chat at the bottom, if anybody's got any questions for either Paul or Mark in the e-commerce digital marketing kind of space, if you could just drop them in the chat, and then either Paul or Mark, whoever's prefers to take the question, will pick it up. We've got about 10 minutes, so I'd say definitely use this opportunity, because once they're gone, they're gone. They're not coming back for a while. Yeah, please do fire out your questions if you have any. Into the chat box, that is.
Oh, Mark, do you want to unmute Mark? I think this is Mark's question here.
Yeah, so if budgets are limited, what are the top 3 marketing channels you would use to support e-commerce? It depends what you're selling online, really. But I mean, it's you've got the kind of channels such as Twitter. You've also got Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. They're the kind of 4 main channels to do business across. For me, I'd say if you've got something that's like visually appealing, it's good to be on Instagram. LinkedIn is obviously the more business orientated for social media, but it does depend what your business is and what your products are. But yeah, it's very much a case of all 4 can do a job for you, but in terms of business, I'll probably say, if you want me to rate it out of 4, I mean, I'll probably say the top one being LinkedIn, Instagram probably a close second, along with Facebook, and then finally Twitter as well.
I think you should mention their children's picture books as well. And yeah, we're actually working with a client that produces children's books as well and publishes them. And their growth has been Facebook, just focusing on one channel, and owning it essentially. And what's been interesting in terms of SEO, there is search volume. This is the other thing I find fascinating about what's happened last year is some markets didn't have search volume, 4 or 5 years ago, whereas now that because everyone's looking, there's a huge search volume for these things. So people are wanting to subscribe to the children's books. So using paid social media to create the awareness, but having content that helps you be found on Google in terms of SEO, so that you're writing constantly about why children books are good and what they're good for educational use and things like that, so that you acquire the eyeballs from paid social media and organic social media where you've got limited spend, and then having an organic SEO presence by writing good content that hopefully is going to get you ranking online. Obviously, you accelerate that by spending money with an agency, but when you can't, I think you can do those things quite cost effectively yourselves.
Yeah. Also, Liz, I recommend YouTube as well. YouTube's quite very low cost advertising, really good.
Yeah, I think in answer to your question with social media, I think it would probably be especially with children's picture books, it would probably be good to use Instagram because it's visually based. So yeah, I'll probably say your top one there is probably Instagram, and as Paul was alluding to there as well, with the sort of social boosting of posts and social ads, then obviously Facebook is really good for that as well. So I think those channels are worth tapping into, see what kind of community you can build on there as well, because that's really important from a social media perspective. because people can obviously leave reviews and rate it and that type of thing as well. But you know, away from sort of social media, if you've got a website and you've got a blog, then obviously the blogging sort of side of it is good for SEO purposes as well. So relevant sort of keywords really help you to sort of rank online and for your books as well.
But the content could be multi-dimensional. So if you're already going to write tips and advice and whatever it is about children's books, if you're in PR leads, get out, you know, use your digital PR abilities to get out there to people and say, you know, I'm writing something of this stuff. Can you publish what my client's writing about? You know, traditional stuff would work pretty well.
I'm a manufacturer, so I'm just looking at how to get for the least amount of money, because we don't have much, the most bang for my buck. But what we do seems to work well. So it was interesting to listen to how you do it down in the big city. I like the personalized niche and hyper local aspect, because we've got loads and loads of really good stories, but they're all Cumbrian stories. You know, I don't know how much they appeal to people in further south of the Ribble. Really, the Ribble's a big river in Preston, by the way.
We're seeing clients writing about stuff locally, and it creates kind of like local envy. You know, like we're doing this, and then people are saying, "Well, I wish I was doing that." So if you've got a product locally, focus locally. You know, serve that market. Yeah,
we can't serve the market. We can't produce the stuff quick enough to satisfy the demand. So lovely position to be in.
Good.
Yeah, I think you've been for that before, Brent, didn't we? I think you had that fear because you came to mine Liz's PR workshop, didn't you?
Yeah.
And you were
I'm
saying,
a regular stalker of yours, George.
Yeah. I know because I remember we did a story on you recently about how we did a story on you recently, but I think the thing that you think is a negative is actually not a negative at all. Like in your mind, you've kind of led yourself into believing that the fact that you're based in Cumbria is a limitation in this. So actually it's not. I mean, look at how, look at Yorkshire Tea, for example, huge, but the part of their USP is that they're from Yorkshire. That's part of the USP.
Yeah.
And they really what's the word, piggybacked on the back of that whole brand story. So I think you should do the same thing. I mean, but I do agree with what Paul's saying there. I mean, I think that starting local first, like always nail your immediate market first, get that kind of done, and once you've dried that up and you've exhausted it, then you slowly start pushing outwards a bit more. That's kind of what I think you should do. But I think
we work with a printer in North London, and they do same day pickup in London, right? So they're focusing on London. They're literally saying if you need printing stuff done today, it's in London, and you can order now and get it in 3 hours. There's e-commerce used to be thought of as this: if I go online, I've got to be price sensitive and I've got to be international or national. I think it's changing now. I think people can have e-commerce for hyper local reasons.
Definitely. Absolutely. And so I don't think you've got any issues there, really, Brendan. I think
no.
And the thing is, people like buying heritage stuff as well. They really do.
Yeah.
People love buying, like, oh, I can get this, this thing from wherever, handmade in the villages somewhere or whatever it is. People like that. It makes them feel good when they hold something that's got a bit of weight to it, because it's a bit like what Paul was saying earlier on. People are starting to reject the retailers now because it's very generic, isn't it? Whereas there's something beautiful about buying something that's kind of artisan, has got a bit more emotion behind it, a bit more meaning behind it. There's something beautiful about that. It creates sentiment in a really amazing way, I think.
Yeah, let me ask you this then. We tie in with a couple of websites like Made Britain and Sir Gordon Bennett that is very much British, and they all sing off the same song sheet as us. Made in Britain from British stuff by British people who are craftsmen. And we avoid, just over the valley from us is the headquarters of Lakeland. They're based at Windermere. And we avoid them. They get all their stuff from Spain. And yet they make a big thing about being a British company. And one day I'm going to absolutely hammer them on eMedia and say, you're not a British company. You just happen to be based here. But you're not really a British company because you don't do all the things that other good companies do. And I was wondering, I deal with Made Britain, Countryside Store, Sir Gordon Bennett. Am I missing any?
think of any. Yeah, but it's great that you'll be going down the British route. I think that's all part of your authentic story. You know, is part of what you should be talking to people about. Is that, you know, as you say, like with the Yorkshire tea, you know, it's British. Let's stick to what we're good at. You know, I think people are becoming attuned to where things are made and where things are located and where businesses are located, where things are manufactured more than ever now. It's certainly that's part of your story.
Yeah, good. Okay, all right, that's great. Thanks.
But look into not on the high street and look into. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but Etsy might even work for you. I don't know. I don't know if it would. But
I do a little bit on Etsy. Yeah.
Yeah. Not on the high street would be a good one for you. I think look at them. But again, it goes back to what we said. You know, obviously there's margins there. I think the key is if you want to maximize your profit margin, you have to weigh up, well, is cost per acquisition for your own customers versus handing it over to a retailer. But what's the potential there? You kind of got to weigh the two up, haven't you? You kind of got to go, well, I might as well lose the sales and spend the money here because that customer's going to come back and buy 5 more times. My profit margin's X. I think you have to think really like multi-dimensional these days.
Yeah.
We have to think that way. So I'm sure Paul's got a couple of things out of that before we wrap up.
Okay. No, yeah, I just think you know, it's if you're already doing it well, though, Brendan, it seems crazy not to lower your margins by going online to another person's platform. If you've already got too many orders. However, for startups, the other way around, it makes sense. You know,
I think that's why I've avoided not on the high street, because they want so much from you, and why would we do it? We don't need to, so why would we? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Sorry to cut this short, but we're gonna cut off in a minute. So I just want to say, good to see you all. Thanks very much for attending, and hopefully I'll see you all at the Vistaprint event this time next month. So thanks a lot. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye. Goodbye. See ya.